Hello, I'm Michael Topham and welcome to this second blending mode video lesson. Having taken a stroll through the different blending modes to choose from in the first video, we're now ready to start using them to control the way that our layers interact in the layers palette. In this video, I'll be using blending modes to help create this stunning eye-catching portrait image. But before we actually blend a new background with the portrait image using blending modes, we've got some work to do to make up this impressive bokeh background. For those who are unfamiliar with bokeh, it's a photographic term that's derived from the Japanese and refers to fuzzy or out of focus areas in an image, in particular the way that pinpoints of light are rendered by a lens's optics. You'll find 5 bokeh images placed in the Start Images folder on the CD, and these were all taken very simply in a dark room using a variety of different sized torches. To start off, just open up bokeh1.jpg and bokeh2.jpg into Photoshop. Once you've got both bokeh1.jpg and bokeh2.jpg open up in Photoshop, just go across into the toolbox and pick out the Move tool, and then make sure you're selected on bokeh2.jpg, hold inside this image and very simply just drag it on top of bokeh1.jpg. Once you've done that, you can just go back to bokeh2.jpg and just close that document down, and then just bring your bokeh1.jpg image just a little bit more central on your screen. Just make sure that you can see your layers palette, and if you can't see yours, just go up to Window and then scroll down and then just click on Layers. You may have noticed that the bokeh in bokeh1.jpg has disappeared, and that's because this new layer that we've dragged in is covering it up. Thanks to blending modes, we can reveal the information beneath bokeh2.jpg while still retaining the main bokeh effect. To do this, we need to change the blending mode of this new layer that we've dragged into bokeh1.jpg. So just make sure that you're selected on layer 1 in your layers palette, and then just click on the blending mode list just to bring up the list of 25 blending modes and choose lighten from the list. By selecting the lighten blending mode, you'll be able to see both bokeh effects of bokeh1.jpg and bokeh2.jpg, and any dark noticeable edges will be completely removed. We can now build up the bokeh effect using the other 3 bokeh images that you'll find in the Start Images folder on the CD. And we're going to do that in exactly the same way. Just pick out the Move tool from the toolbox, drag them and drop them onto this main bokeh image, and then use the lighten or screen blending modes to reveal the bright points of light. It's going to take me a few minutes just to randomly drop these other bokeh images from the CD onto this main bokeh image. So what I'll do is I'll rejoin you in a minute. So I've dragged in all 5 bokeh images into my main image, changing the blending mode on each new layer to lighten. Don't forget you can always resize the bokeh if you so wish by just selecting the particular layer from the layers palette and then hitting Ctrl and T just to enter free transform mode. By hovering the cursor beneath the box, it gives you the opportunity to rotate your bokeh to a particular angle, and then when you're happy with your bokeh and the way it's been positioned in your main document, to confirm that, just either double click inside or just hit enter on your keyboard. So when you're really happy with the way that your bokeh background is looking, you're ready to flatten the image and crunch down all these layers in our layers palette down into one. You can do that by just going up to layer in the menu bar and then just going down and clicking on flatten image. At the moment our bokeh background has a rather strong cyan tint to it, and what we can do is we can very easily warm up this bokeh background within the hue and saturation. Just go up to image in the menu bar, go down to adjustments, across, and then scroll down and click on hue and saturation. Just take hold of your hue slider and just pull this over towards the left hand side, and you'll see how the tones are changing in the bokeh background. Pull this slider right over towards the left hand side and make sure you've got a value of -180. Then just move down and take hold of your saturation slider and just pull this over towards the right very slightly and go for a value of +10, and then hit OK to make these changes. Now we need to blur this background very marginally, and we can do that by going up to Filter and then down to Blur, across, and then down to Gaussian Blur. Just make sure you've got a radius of around 5 pixels set, and then just hit OK to apply this blur to our main bokeh background. So with all the hard work done creating this fantastic looking bokeh background, we're now ready to open up our main portrait image that can be found in the Start Images folder on the CD. So just open up portrait.jpg into Photoshop. Carefully position your portrait.jpg file alongside your bokeh background document, and then just go across into the toolbox, pick out the Move tool, and then just select the bokeh background, hold down Shift on the keyboard, and just drag this very carefully on top of your portrait.jpg image. Holding down Shift as we dragged across with the Move tool ensures that the bokeh background is centrally positioned on top of our main portrait image. So having moved that bokeh background across, it's now safe just to close down that bokeh background as it's no longer required. If we just take a look in our layers palette, we can now see that we've got two layers. We've got our main background layer, which is containing our portrait, and we've got that new layer that we've just dragged in, which is our bokeh background. Now it's a good idea just to rename your layers. So I'm just going to double click on layer 1 and just going to call this layer bokeh. Make sure that you've got your bokeh layer selected in the layers palette, and then just go up to the top of the palette, click on this little arrow to load up the list of 25 blending modes. Scroll down through the blending modes until you come across the contrast blending mode group, and then just click simply once on overlay. You'll be able to see that by changing the blending mode from normal to overlay has instantly superimposed the bokeh blend image on the base of the portrait while preserving the highlight and shadow detail of the portrait itself. To make this blend look a little bit more subtle, you can just go up towards the top right of the layers palette and just click on the little opacity right hand arrow there and just knock this back very slightly, going for a value of around 88%. With the bokeh layer still selected in the layers palette, just head down to the bottom of the layers palette and just very simply just click once on the add layer mask icon, and you'll be able to see how that's created a layer mask thumbnail alongside your bokeh background layer thumbnail. Having made your layer mask in your layers palette, just go across into your toolbox and pick out the brush tool, or equally hit its keyboard shortcut, which is the letter B. Move down to the bottom of the toolbox and make sure your foreground colour is set to black, and then move up towards the options bar and then make sure you've got a brush diameter set to 300 pixels and make sure you choose a soft brush. Moving across in the options bar, make sure you've got the mode set to normal and the opacity set to around 35%. Just make sure that you zoom in nice and closely on the model's face. So I'm just going to maximise this and then just zoom in closely by hitting Ctrl and plus a few times on the keyboard. Just make sure that you're selected on your layer mask thumbnail in the layers palette, and then just move across to your portrait and slowly start brushing over her face, just revealing the facial features with the brush that we set up in the options bar. So I'm just going to very slowly paint over the model's face just to reveal her natural skin tones and where the bokeh effect has lightened the skin. If you happen to make a mistake whilst painting with black into your layer mask, just take a few steps back in your history, or equally just hit the letter X on the keyboard to change the foreground and the background colours around, and then paint back the bokeh with exactly the same brush. It's going to take me probably about 5 minutes or so to reveal the model's original skin tones as I want them, moving through the image, holding down spacebar on the keyboard to enter the hand tool. I'll rejoin you in a minute once I've finished painting into my mask. So I've just spent in between 5 and 10 minutes painting back our model's original skin tones with a black brush, painting into our layer mask, and the portrait is looking all the better for it. There's one finishing touch that I'd like to add, and that's just to increase the saturation of the whole image very slightly. Just make sure that you're selected on your bokeh background layer thumbnail, and then go down to the bottom of the layers palette and just click on the create new fill or adjustment layer icon, and then go up and choose hue and saturation from the list. Just take hold of the saturation slider and just pull this over towards the right hand side, going for a value of around plus 25, and then just go across, hit OK, and you'll be able to see the difference. The image has been transformed. So there we have it. We've created a fantastic portrait using blending modes not only to amalgamate two layers together effectively in the layers palette, but to also make up this stunning bokeh background. If you're feeling adventurous, why not use blending modes and see how effective textures can be for backgrounds? We've supplied 3 textured images on the CD, so why not try repeating exactly the same technique with these to see which work most effectively. I hope you've enjoyed watching this video lesson that's taken a good look at how we can put blending modes to good use, and I look forward to seeing you again very soon.